the first time I realized my inheritance was gone. It wasn't because someone told me. It wasn't a conversation. It wasn't even intentional. It was a document, a version of something that used to include my name and didn't anymore. At first, I thought it was a mistake, a draft, an update, something temporary, but it wasn't. Because when I asked my mother about it, she didn't deny it. She didn't hesitate. She didn't even explain. She just said, "I made the right decision." That was it. No discussion, no justification, no room for interpretation. And just like that, everything I thought was secured was gone. 2 years later, I sat across from her again. Same house, same table, same calm expression. But this time, I wasn't asking what happened. I was explaining what would happen next. And for the first time, she wasn't the one in control of the outcome. I grew up believing inheritance was structure, not a gift, not a reward, a system. Something built over time, something passed forward. My father believed that. He didn't talk about money emotionally. He talked about it clearly. "This is yours because it's meant to continue," he used to say. Not ownership, responsibility. And I understood that. Not perfectly, but enough. Everything changed when he died, not suddenly, gradually. At first, nothing moved. Everything stayed in place. The house, the accounts, the structure, and my mother seemed the same. Calm, composed, in control. But control changes people, especially when no one questions it. The first change was small, a transfer, not large, not important, just unexpected. Then another, then a shift in allocation. Then a document updated without discussion. Nothing dramatic, but enough to notice. The day I saw it clearly wasn't emotional. It was quiet, a legal file, a finalized version. And my name wasn't there. I didn't react immediately. I went to her, not angry, not accusing, just asking. "Why was it changed?" I said. She didn't look surprised. That told me everything. "I made the right decision," she said. No explanation, no hesitation, just final. That moment didn't feel like loss. It felt like removal. Because inheritance isn't just money, it's position. And she had just reassigned it. And for the first time, I understood something. This wasn't about what I lost. It was about what she thought she could change. I didn't ask her again, not right away, because asking questions only works when someone is willing to answer, and she wasn't. So I looked at the document again, carefully, line by line, not for emotion, for structure. Because if something changed, there had to be a reason, and reasons leave patterns. That's when I saw it, the name, not mine, someone else's. At first, I didn't recognize it. Then, I did. My cousin, Daniel, not close, not involved, not even present for most of our lives. But suddenly, he was everything. Primary beneficiary, full control, complete transfer, just like that. This wasn't a redistribution. It was a replacement, not adjustment, removal. Daniel wasn't part of the system. He didn't understand the business, didn't understand the structure, didn't understand anything my father built. But he had one thing that mattered now: proximity. He stayed close to her after my father died. Visited, called, showed up. I didn't. Because I believed something that turned out to be wrong. That structure didn't depend on presence, but it did. The more I looked, the more I saw it. Small transfers, gradual inclusion, increased involvement, not obvious, not dramatic, but consistent. And consistency creates position. She didn't just give it away, she replaced me. And she did it slowly, quietly, legally. I didn't feel anger. That's important. Because anger would have made me react, and reaction would have made me lose. Instead, I started asking a different question. Not why she did it, but how. Because if something is done legally, it can be undone the same way. She had authority, control, access, but authority doesn't mean unlimited power. It means defined power, and defined means traceable. I requested copies, not emotionally, formally, versions of the will, trust structures, transfer timelines, everything. At first, it looked clean. Everything signed, everything valid, everything correct. But that's surface, and surface is where most people stop. I didn't. The timing didn't align. Changes happened too quickly. Decisions made without consultation. Adjustments that required justification, but had none documented. Why now? Why him? Why complete control? Those weren't emotional questions. They were legal ones, because intent matters, and intent can be challenged. This wasn't just about inheritance. It was about influence, and influence leaves traces. I didn't confront her again, not yet, because this wasn't a conversation anymore. It was a case, and for the first time, I wasn't trying to get it back. I was preparing to take it back, legally. I didn't hire a lawyer right away. That would have been reactive, obvious, easy to prepare for. Instead, I read everything first, not emotionally, structurally, because legal systems don't fail because of what's written. They fail because of what's assumed. The will looked clean, updated, signed, witnessed, the trust structure even cleaner, assets reassigned, control transferred, authority centralized. On the surface, unbreakable. But I wasn't looking at the surface. I was looking at timing. The original structure built by my father, clear intent, clear distribution, clear responsibility. Then, after his death, changes. Not gradual, compressed. That mattered, because legal changes can be made quickly, but intent takes time to establish. The updates happen within a narrow window, too narrow. Decisions of that size don't normally happen that fast, not without discussion, not without record. There were no meeting notes, no advisory input, no documentation of reasoning, just execution, and execution without explanation creates vulnerability. The trust amendments shifted full control, not partial, not conditional, complete. That's unusual, because most structures protect continuity. This one replaced it. This wasn't preservation, it was redirection, and redirection requires justification. Medical timing, that's where it changed. The amendments were signed during a period of instability. Not obvious, not documented clearly, but traceable. And that matters, because capacity isn't assumed, it's proven. That's when I reached out. Not to a general lawyer, to a specialist, someone who didn't focus on outcomes, on process. I didn't explain everything. I asked one question. If this structure is challenged, where does it break? He didn't answer immediately. He reviewed, compared, analyzed. Then he said something simple. Not where you think. That got my attention. Where? I asked. Intent and influence, he said. Not the documents, not the signatures, the context. If someone changes a system, they have to understand it. If they don't, they rely on someone else. And reliance can be challenged. That's when I looked at him again, not emotionally, legally. His involvement increased right before the changes. His presence aligned with the amendments. His benefit was total. That combination creates a question, not accusation, question. And in law, questions matter more than answers. We didn't rush, we built. Timeline, intent gaps, influence patterns, capacity concerns. Not aggressively, precisely, because the goal wasn't to attack the structure. It was to expose how it was built. I didn't feel like I was fighting. That's the difference. This wasn't emotional, it was alignment. Something had been changed outside of its original intent, and systems like that can be corrected. We filed, quietly, formally, no announcement, no warning, just action. The next time she heard my name, it wasn't in a conversation, it was in a legal notice, and for the first time, she wasn't explaining her decision, she was defending it. She didn't call me, not immediately. That wasn't her way. She waited, reviewed, prepared, because control was how she operated. But legal notices don't wait for control, they force response. She asked to meet, not at her house, not in a familiar space, a law office, neutral, structured, that mattered. Because this wasn't personal anymore, it was defined. I arrived early, not to prepare, to observe, layout, positions, power. She walked in with counsel. Of course she did, composed, controlled, unchanged. But something was different, not visible, structural. She wasn't leading the situation, she was inside it. You filed against me. No greeting, no transition, just direct. Yes, I said. No explanation, no emotion, because everything that mattered was already in motion. This is unnecessary, she said, calm, measured. I made a legal decision. That word, legal, was her shield, and she believed it held. Not completely, I replied. That changed the room, not dramatically, but enough, because now there was doubt. Our position is clear, her lawyer said. The documents are valid. They were. That wasn't the issue. I'm not challenging the documents, I said. Pause. I'm challenging how they were made. Silence. Because that's where it breaks. Not what's written. What led to it. She didn't respond immediately. That was new, because she always had an answer, always had a position. Now, she had to think. What exactly are you claiming? She asked. Not dismissive, careful. That was the shift. I didn't list everything. I didn't need to. Timing, influence, capacity, I said. 3 words, enough. Her lawyer glanced at her, quick, subtle, but I saw it. Because that's what happens when a case becomes real, not louder, clearer. I was fully capable, she said. Faster now, less controlled. That mattered, because when people move faster, they lose precision. And the decisions, I asked, no accusation, just continuation, silence. Because now, she couldn't answer without opening something else. He was helping, she said. There it was, not a denial, an admission. Helping with what? I asked, still calm, still controlled. That's what made it work. Because I wasn't attacking, I was clarifying, and clarification removes protection. Her lawyer stepped in again. We can continue this in court. Of course they could, but that wasn't the point. The point had already happened. The structure was exposed. She looked at me, not as her son, not as someone she replaced, as a variable she didn't account for. And that's when I knew she understood, not everything, but enough. This isn't going to end the way you think, she said. Last attempt, control. I stood up, calm. It already has, I replied. No anger, no pressure, just certainty. As I walked out, I didn't feel like I was taking something back. I felt like I was restoring something that was never supposed to change. After that meeting, she didn't try to negotiate. That told me everything. Because negotiation means control, and she had already lost it. Everything shifted into process, filings, responses, schedules, not fast, not slow, precise. Because legal systems don't move on emotion, they move on structure. She held her position. Of course she did. The documents were valid. The signatures were real. The structure, complete. On the surface? She was right, but this was never about the surface. Requests for documentation, timeline verification, medical records, communication logs, not aggressive, just thorough. And thorough creates pressure because pressure reveals inconsistency. Her responses became slower, not delayed, careful. That's what happens when certainty fades. You start checking things you didn't question before. He didn't show up at first, stayed distant, stayed quiet. But as the case progressed, he became visible in documents, in communication, in timing, not intentionally, structurally. And that's what mattered. His involvement aligned with every major change, not partially, consistently. That wasn't proof, but it was direction. The deposition wasn't dramatic. No shouting, no confrontation, just questions, simple, clear, repeated. Who initiated the changes? Why were they made at that time? What role did he play? At first, she answered smoothly, confident, controlled. But control requires consistency, and consistency requires truth. It didn't happen all at once. It happened in small moments, a hesitation, a correction, a shift in wording, nothing dramatic, but enough. Because in legal process, small changes matter. She wasn't being attacked. She was being clarified, and clarification removes protection. By the end of it, she wasn't defending the decision anymore. She was explaining it. And that's the shift. Defense holds. Explanation exposes. The case stopped being about documents. It became about process. Intent, influence, capacity, the exact places where structure can fail. I didn't push harder. I didn't need to. Because once a system starts aligning, it continues on its own. The final phase approached, not emotional, defined, and for the first time, she wasn't preparing to win. She was preparing to respond. And that's when I knew this wasn't about taking anything back. It was about something else, restoring what should have never been changed. The final decision didn't take long, not because it was simple, because it was clear. By the time everything was reviewed, there wasn't much left to argue. Not the documents, not the signatures, not the structure. Those held. What didn't was everything behind them. The amendments were reversed, not erased, invalidated, not because they were written incorrectly, because they were made incorrectly. That difference is everything. The original structure restored, not as a victory, as alignment. Because it was never about getting something new. It was about correcting what should have stayed the same. She didn't react, not in the way people expect. No anger, no argument, no attempt to fight it further. She just sat there, still, quiet, because for the first time, she wasn't in control of the outcome. She was inside it. We didn't speak immediately, not after. That came later, at the house. The same one, nothing had changed, and everything had. You took it back, she said, not accusing, not emotional, just stating what happened. I restored it, I replied. That difference mattered, because this wasn't about ownership. It was about structure. I thought I was protecting it, she said. There it was, not control, belief. You changed it, I said, without understanding it. Silence, because now she saw it, not as a mistake, as a miscalculation. You didn't lose it because of me, I said. Pause. You lost it the moment you thought it was yours to give away. That stayed, because it wasn't an attack. It was truth. He didn't fight it, didn't argue, didn't return, because his position was never stable. It was assigned, and assigned positions don't last. I didn't feel like I won. That's the part people don't understand. This wasn't victory, it was correction. Something shifted back to where it was supposed to be. Nothing more, nothing less. For years, I thought inheritance was something you received. Now, I understood something else. It's something you protect. And if you don't understand it, someone else will try to redefine it. When I left the house, I didn't look back. Not because I didn't care, because I didn't need to. Everything that needed to be resolved already was. She didn't lose the inheritance because I took it back. She lost it the moment she believed it was hers to change.